So the topic today, continuing from yesterday, is keeping in touch, the Dharma of contact. So yesterday we introduced the idea of an email list for those who'd like to be in contact with one another outside of our daily online meditation. And we've tried it before, but there was no momentum. So it seems there's some momentum now. And creating an email list for our daily online Sangha, it might seem like a simple administrative detail, but as many of you probably noticed, it comes with more. It easily becomes more. Questions arise, suggestions come forth, and likely we'll encounter a few more as we explore this together this week. One thing that has stayed with me is the word, this is kind of on this topic, the word contact. And it stayed with me because it's a part of a teaching on dependent arising and conditionality, that there's an aspect that's translated as contact. Phasa is the Pali word. And as this teaching goes, contact comes together when our senses meet an object or a form, internally or externally. And, objects range anything from a thought and feeling to, oranges and apples, to things in the world around us. So anytime our senses make contact with something, this is, we're perceiving it and cognizing it and recognizing it. And at the same time, it comes with this broad stroke of being pleasant or unpleasant. And this kind of teaching is part of the early Buddhist teachings. It's talked about in very more formal and structured ways. I'm making it kind of simple for us. But in general, our senses are constantly reaching out, and they're reaching out into our worlds, our inner world and our outer world. And it's not a passive process. And I love this teaching. Buddhism, we consider the mind a sixth sense. And I've used this teaching many times over the years. Even though we're able to discern now many more senses, up to 23, I think probably even more, it amazes me that the mind was talked about this way as a sense door thousands of years ago. So back to the word contact. More recently in some of my study, I've heard another translation that caught my attention, and they translate phasa, contact, as touch. And touch, the word feels really different to me. And this happens often when I hear a different translation of a word. I get kind of excited and I consider how it can be used. Contact, it can work. It's not like I wouldn't want to say no longer use contact as a translation, but sometimes it feels a bit mechanical, like two objects just bumping into one another and then bouncing off each other. And touch has this kind of suggestion of interactivity. Something reaches us, something affects us, we respond, our senses are engaged, and the senses become involved in building our highly subjective worlds. So as we meditate together every morning, our minds are constantly being touched. We've been touching each other's lives for over 6 years, many times without realizing, I think, the depth of it. And what strikes me is that we haven't done this by trying to fix each other. We practice listening. We practice allowing another person's experience to exist without immediately making it ours or explaining it or solving it. And I think this is one way to understand touch, this aspect of dependent arising and conditionality. It brings us back to the way we're continually being touched by conditions, shaped by them. And our responses become the conditions for what follows. So it's this kind of chain and pattern. We become who we are in part through the relationships with each other and the objects that touch us. So our Sangha has been growing together and falling apart together. Sangha is never static. As we change, the conditions that support us also change. And that offers, I think, each of us a deep learning experience. This has been a deep learning experience for me to bring our sanghas together, this daily experience, and offering this to new people to join us. And it has a kind of intimacy. And the intimacy, I think, that develops here, it can awaken a longing for more conversation, more contact, more connection. And this is where I want to consider a bit of wondering, when does my simple wish for connection become the feeling that I need more, need or want more? And we don't ask it for a judge, to judge that question, really, because we want to become more familiar with our wants and needs and our longings. We don't consider them necessarily problems. They can become problems, though. But it's part of being human to have longings. And our lived experience includes needing food, safety, companionship, the need for solitude, recognition, rest. So reflective meditation really invites us more to meet those needs and wants for connection with kindness and curiosity rather than automatically acting on them. Hence why we're talking about an email list. It brings me back to the list. Whether you choose to be on it or not is up to you. Basically, you would send an email to dailyonlinesangha@gmail.com and express interest in being part of the list. Teachers, hosts, participants, we all have the same choice. The list is really one more condition that we're introducing to this life of our Sangha. And as with any new condition, we'll discover what sports it and what complicates it. We don't know yet, so we can't know in advance. But while we're doing this, we really are establishing a few shared agreements. And one is that the list would be for contacting each other individually, not for continuing group conversations by email or sending resources, articles, announcements to everybody as a group list. Another one we talked about yesterday is rooted in confidentiality. If someone shares something during our meditation session, we don't want to send an email asking them to tell us more about what they shared. We really do want to consider it a list for people to talk about their own experience. So if you want to continue talking about your experience and you want to reach out to someone, it's a different kind of invitation. It comes from your choice and not just from us being curious about each other. We really want to have that autonomy that we've been developing with each other here daily online. So I wouldn't see these agreements as really just practical guidelines. I want to consider them as a way we're practicing this teaching of touch, how we're touching each other and touching each other's lives. And it's another way to become more aware of how we are touched and how our responses become the conditions for what happens next. The end. I'm stopping here.